me, I am the coordinator for the DLR program in Jamaica. And the DLR program, it's really a program that allows young persons like yourself to innovate and come up with, and use those innovations to come up with businesses. So we're based in Kingston, right at the Institute of Law and Economics on 10 Ultimate Crescent. It's a physical space where you can come in and we give you innovation and entrepreneurial training for you to be able to launch those businesses. So what do we have? So we have 3D printing. Right? We have love the 3D printer. We have a laser cutter there. We have VR technology there. We've got computers, tablets, everything that you would need to possibly help you in that process. And we've been around since 2017. This is our 4th year of implementation, and I'm so happy that we are going to be able to do this again next year. So COVID hasn't ruined our plans for that at all. We also have lots of different interactive and training and workshop sessions like this. We have pitch competitions. I think that's how I know majority of you in here. You guys have been a part of my pitch competition or my ideathon competition, all of which were face-to-face before, but now we're totally virtual. And some of you have also been a part of our workshop as well. So we're just constantly trying to come up with new ways to reach people, young people like yourselves. And the whole purpose of this weekend is to allow you to be able to upskill, professional upskilling, personal upskilling, and entrepreneurial upskilling. And I really do hope that I get to see you again after this, because we have a lot of exciting things coming to you in 2021. And thank you again for taking the time to be with us. I know it's a rainy Saturday, which is why I'm so happy this is virtual. And I'm hoping that if you know anybody who has registered for this session, please encourage them to log on. We are starting. I want everybody to be a part of it as best as possible. So let me not blah blah anymore. Dwayne, over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Shani. Great stuff there. And I'm certainly looking forward to great things from you and the rest of the team in 2021. Yeah, 2020 is almost over. I know a lot of persons were clamoring. They want to see the back of 2020, but we're not sure what's on the horizon. So we're hopeful that it will be a much better year than this one, but we wait to see what it holds for us. So the summit is being held during this month, Youth Month. November is celebrated as Youth Month. And we have on this call as well the chair for the Youth Month Committee, Ms. Jamie Ann Chavans, and I'm gonna give the floor to Ms. Chavans at the moment so that she could share some inspiring words to everyone on this call. Jamie, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. I hope you can forgive me for not turning my camera on.
We'll forgive you this time, but later on we want to see you.
Okay, that is fine. That is fine.
Sure.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to give a special welcome. Morning, Shani. Give a special welcome to everyone, especially for getting up so early in the morning and seeing such a large turnout. It shows that as young people that you all are committed to your own advancement. And so I'm particularly proud of you. This month is Youth Month, and as you know, typically in Youth Month, we see a lot of each other face to face. We're able to hug, we're able to interact. And because of COVID-19, we had to rethink how it was that we were going to engage our youth during this period. So I would just like to say, I hope that for the rest of the day, you are able to learn, and that even though you're online, you will be able to make friends, meet each other, have some good interactions. And I want to particularly thank Dwayne for coming on board for Youth Month. This is our first year with ILE. I have personally worked with ILE before, and I know Shanae and the good work that they do in terms of inspiring our youth and assisting them in pushing forward with becoming entrepreneurs. And so I would like for each of you to take this as a stepping stone and not just a discussion forum of sorts, but to actively think about what are your next steps. how it is that if you're having already have a business, how is it that you can improve upon that business? And I know that Dwayne and Shani are here, and they give really, really awesome advice to our young persons, and they will assist in pointing you in the right direction. So I want to thank you all for coming out. I am so proud already seeing the numbers at this early point in the morning. I am not a morning person, so I am going to, without further ado, move on. Thank you guys, and please enjoy your day.
Great, thank you so much, Jamie. Certainly happy to have you this morning. If even your voice alone for now, certainly happy that you are here with us and could join to just inspire and give some opening remarks there as the chair of the Youth Month Committee, running around like a chicken without a head in this November. Here when there are activities left, right, and center, all in a bid to empower and bolster our young people. And somebody else who's been running around left, right, and center in the ministry is Miss Yanique Williams. And I'm going to, at this point, turn over to her so that she could also share some remarks. Yanique, are you here?
Morning, everyone. Yes, hey. I'm here, Dwayne. I swear I'm not following suit with Jamie, but I'm just tendering apologies. I'll turn my camera on later in the day, I promise you, so you can put a face to this name. All right? I'm not as Shanae and Jamie, but I'll give you a little face to work with in the afternoon. Morning again, guys. Welcome everyone for joining on behalf of the Ministry of Education, the Youth and Adolescent Policy Division. I want to extend our thanks to Mr. Gutzmer Shanae for being on board. Our approach for Youth Month is to boost inclusiveness and multi-sectoral collaboration, especially in a time, of course, when you know that 90% of our engagement has been shifted to virtual.
It was okay.
During the pandemic, of course, we're called, just as Jamie indicated earlier, we're called to rethink our strategies. We're called to be innovative. We're called, guys, you're hearing me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yanique,
yes.
we're hearing you.
Hello?
Yeah, yes, Yanique, we're hearing you.
We're here.
During the pandemic, we're called to rethink our strategies. Hence, the theme for Youth Month, as Jamie indicated earlier, is to rethink our strategies. We need to own and hone our skills, tap into markets such as these to see how we can make ourselves relevant and earn residual incomes during this time. Of course, you could be otherwise occupied. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning. I know YouTube is up and running. You have IG Live up and running, and you choose to be here. So we want to thank you for coming on board so early. This is the start of a series of engagement that we'll be doing with ILE throughout the month. Thank you for joining. Be attentive, be respectful, be passionate, be eager for knowledge, and pay attention. And enjoy the rest of the day and have meaningful interactions and engagements. You'll see my face later, I promise you, at the end of the afternoon.
Great, thank you so much, Yanique. And we certainly look forward to continuing the collaboration with the ministry and its partners throughout the rest of Youth Month and of course into 2021 and beyond. We would have been talking about different partners and persons who assisted to make this all possible. And we could not be doing this without the continuous help of Citibank, Trust for the Americas, and the Organization of American States, who continue to look for opportunities and ways to meaningfully engage young people throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. And we want to, at this point, make way for our Senior Project Officer at the Trust for the Americas, Mr. Kime Del Rio, for him to share some remarks as well. Kime, it's over to you.
Thank you, Dwayne, Shanae, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. You know, I want to share first a little experience that I had when I was sitting down to come up with something to tell you and share with you today. So I think it was the situation that many of you must be familiarized with. I immediately sat down and resorted to thinking about the challenges and obstacles we faced this year, a kind of an impulse. But then I realized by now we are all familiarized with it. We are actually moving forward and in a sense, finding ways to live with this, and we are already adapted to this new reality. So I think it's important that we have this sense of rethinking, as the Youth Month motto is this year, and start moving forward from there. Focus on the bright side and what can we do about the situation that we're living. So I think that this situation brings a certain set of circumstances that have some value, in which is first the growing global awareness of the value of trust and collaboration. That is really important. I think this year we realized how important it is to work as a global team in every aspect and every industry, from politics to innovation to entrepreneurship, and of course, public health. So I think that trust is the cornerstone of how we can test these type of circumstances, and especially how we move forward. We need trust in our institutions, we need trust in society, and of course, trust between consumers and service providers, products, in order to be able to reactivate our economy and our way of life back to how it was. So I think it is important to think and remix a little bit of things and come up with ways, innovative ways of moving forward and adjusting and adapting to this new setting. I have a list here of things that are really important, how to move forward and how to rebuild and lay the foundations of a more inclusive economy and more eco world that I want to share with you. So the first one would be double down on upskilling and reskilling, identifying the jobs of tomorrow. Now this one is kind of tricky because you know the landscape of work is moving so fast and innovations are coming up so at such a fast pace. Prioritize redeployment and reemployment, revalue the essential work and improve the quality of those works, and a collaborative recovery, kind of resetting and rebuilding. So with that said, I want to welcome you all. I hope this is a real benefit for all of you. I think it's really important. I want to thank, of course, our partners, well, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, of course, the National Integrity Action, the Jamaica National Bank, the Hard Trust NTA, of course, the constant support of the Institute of Law Economics. Actually, guys, without you, this wouldn't be a possibility. You've worked so hard to bring all these pieces together. So we're really glad to support you in that sense. Citibank Foundation, of course, with who, without its support, it wouldn't be possible. The Organization of American States, who actually supports us in our work here. So guys, I'm really happy to be here, and I give you back the word to you guys. Thank you all.
Great, thank you so much, Kime. And as you mentioned, upskilling and learning new stuff. I promise you, one of the things that I'm going to try to learn is a new language, so that I can communicate with you both in English and in Spanish, as you often switch up and do from time to time. So that's my personal pledge and promise. That's something that I'm going to try and do for 2021. Shani, are you with me with that? I know we are kind of ride and die. We did some courses together this year, and maybe that should be our thing for 2021.
You know how to speak Spanish, so
oh.
I'm sorry.
I do too.
French.
I listen to my Dora and so on. So I know supermercado for sure.
Well, you can move around with that.
That's the only word you know.
Dwayne, to make it easier, there's an app.
Oh, yes. For sure.
Just go on the App Store.
Exactly.
He only knows
Duolingo or something to that effect.
Yeah. He only knows supermercado and yo tengo. That's the only thing he knows. Traveling to a Spanish-speaking country with Dwayne is hilarious. I've done it twice.
So yeah, thank you so much again, Kime, for the constant support. And I know that Rodrigo is also online as well, another pillar for us there at the Trust. So really and truly want to say thank you guys for the constant support. We should have been joined by Guyan, but we will get word from Guyan in a little bit. He would have talked to us a little about some of the other activities that we have coming up for Youth Month, both on this kind of forum, and then also some of the other good things that's happening. But you guys are here with us for the rest of the day, so we will definitely get to that. Jamie would have talked about, you know, some interaction and making sure that you meet others and so on. And right now we're going to try that feature out. Actually, we've upgraded our Zoom platform, and just like when we were moving from 1999 into 2000, you weren't sure what to expect. We've never gone beyond 100 participants, and so I'm seeing we're at 95, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that everything on Zoom's backend is together so that once we reach 101, it works. And so I'm keeping my fingers crossed there. But now we're going to jump into some breakout rooms, and you literally have 2 minutes to just introduce yourself to the persons who are there. You never know, these are people who you might end up doing business with. Some you might know already, some you might not know, but quickly, just introduce yourselves as best you can to the persons in your room, and we will come back here in 2 minutes. So we're going to do 2 stints of that. We're going to jump into our room with some random people, introduce ourselves, chat a little bit, and then come right back. All right. So we are jumping into those rooms now.
Woo, woo.
Lot, and I really think that it's carrying out its purpose. So I just want to thank everybody.
Great, great, great. Thank you so much, John. And there will be other opportunities for networking as we go throughout the day as well. Dane, you can unmute as well.
Morning.
Yes, hi, morning.
Morning. So the first group, when I got thrown into the first group, I wasn't sure what to do. So that 2 minutes elapsed. However, the second group, I was in with Shahid, Cheryl, Fashali, and myself. And I think the general consensus was reason why we joined was basically to redefine ourselves, you know, to redefine ourselves and still be marketable in the new industry, or the new norm that we're going into. So I think this consensus is really redefining ourselves.
Great, 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 great. All right, good stuff. Thank you so much. And guys, we will get other opportunities as we go throughout the day. All right, so we didn't have, yeah, let's get Melaine. Melaine, you have the last word. For those of you who watch MSNBC, that's a program. So Melaine.
Good morning. I was a participant of CARICOM as well, and Ms. Michelle shared this for me. I am 22 years old, and I am not yet an entrepreneur, but I would like to learn and listen so that I could better myself.
Awesome, good. You're at the right place, and we will share with you as we go throughout this session other webinars and activities for Youth Month that you should also check out, as well as it's power packed with a number of information. All right, we are pretty much ready to throw over to our main facilitator for today. I just want to share quickly some of the results for the quiz that you guys have been doing. Let's see if I can jump over to that quickly. Yeah, here we go. So, careers in digital marketing, introduction to cybersecurity. I'm sure the tutor and the presenter would be happy to know that that's the second most interesting thing. And it's right there, right upon careers in digital marketing. That's pretty useful. And so we are very excited and ready for that presentation. Let me just pop over to the next screen. And I think I've really been watching too much MSNBC recently, because now I feel like Steve Karnacki at that board trying to crunch numbers and so on. So great. Knowledge, education, personal development, motivation, positivity, capacity building. Good stuff. All right. And we are making note of this, guys, and we'll be sure to fulfill these. Shanae, over to you to introduce this morning's presenter.
Okay, sure. So this morning's presenter, his name is Royal Forbes. Just some quick information about Royal. Royal is a youngster like yourself making waves in the cybersecurity world. He's a past student at the Northern Caribbean University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Information Science with an emphasis in security. He also has experiences in information security, which includes assisting with IT audits, vulnerability management, and remediation and security reviews. He's also ensuring appropriate security controls are in place that will safeguard digital files, vital electronic infrastructure, and respond to computer security breaches and viruses. Well, I'm so sorry, I'm butchering your profile. Well, Royal is also, and currently a cybersecurity analyst at the Jamaica National Bank. Without any further delay, Royal, everyone, please make way for Royal Forbes, your first presenter for today. Woo!
Thank you, Shanae.
You're welcome, Royal.
I just want to say good morning to everyone. It's my pleasure to be here with you all and to present the information and experience that I've gathered over the years of being in the information security field. It is a very dynamic field. Of course, it requires a lot of training, a lot of motivation. It's not something that is just learned overnight. So I hope that the information that I will present to you guys, it may motivate you all if you plan on pursuing a field in cybersecurity. And just for the record, cybersecurity is in everything.
Yeah. Royal, I'm hearing that your audio is a little off. You kind of sound a little muffled.
Let me just check the audio settings. Just give me a minute.
Yeah.
How about now?
It's a little bit better. Go ahead.
Oh, Lord. No, I can't hear anybody. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, man.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, it's better.
Okay. All right. So my train of thought process for what I was saying somehow left me. So I'm going to just jump right into my presentation. All right. So I have for you all a presentation that I compiled listing various topic subjects that we're going to speak on. So let me just share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Very techie looking screen, yes.
All right, thank you. All right, so the first thing that we're going to look on is what is cybersecurity. Now, in essence, this right here, cybersecurity is the protection of electronic systems, networks, and data from cyber criminals. And we have three main aspects of cybersecurity that pretty much targets every essence of it. And these are, if you look on the image below, it says integrity, availability, and confidentiality. This is what we call the CIA of cybersecurity, right? As it relates to confidentiality, confidentiality is basically keeping data secret. We want to ensure that sensitive data can only be viewed by authorized parties and those that are intended to see that data. We live in a data-driven world, and if every data was exposed, it could cause major catastrophes. So this is a very important element of cybersecurity that is very important and that is used right across the board. You may be thinking to yourself, keeping data secret. It's simple. If you do online transactions, if you go online and you're purchasing like an order, your bank information from your credit card or debit card is sent over in an encrypted form of data. And what that means is data presented from your credit card, like your credit card number, security PIN, name on the credit card or debit card. Once you do a transaction, that data is turned into ciphertext. And what ciphertext means is it's pretty much garbage. So if someone were to intercept that communication, that information would just look like total rubbish. So that is the essence of confidentiality, and cryptography is a very major part in that. Also, you have access controls. Who needs access to view this data? We have in cybersecurity data classifications, and this can be branched off into three main parts. So you have, like, say for instance, data that is classified as public. Data that is classified as public can be released into the public. It's general information, right? So for instance, if you go on the Tax Jamaica website, you'll see information if you want to sign up for a driver's license or you want to pay for a police certificate. That is general information. Data like that will be classified as public. Now you have private information, which is stored or communicated internally. So companies would have information that only employees would need access to. Information like that would not necessarily be catered to people outside. And then you have top secret information. Now, information that falls into that category would be information like what governments and military institutions would use. So information like that would be like nuclear weapons, so to speak. Things that we should know about. All right. And then we're going to go into the next aspect, which is integrity. Just a second. So what integrity?
Another one. They said you still kind of sound a little muffled. I don't know if it's the audio from the headphones. I don't know if you take off the headphones, it might be a little bit clearer.
Okay. Let me try that.
Mm-hmm.
How about now?
Perfect.
Okay.
Great. I feel like to tell it to start over. Just kidding. Right. Continue.
All right. So what I just mentioned in confidentiality, was everyone able to grasp that? Do you need me to go over it again, or should I move on? Can you see the responses from go over?
Yeah, I think you should go over that one for sure.
Okay.
But not that you don't have to go over in detail, but
okay.
More persons are asking for you to go over than that. Yes.
All right. All right, guys. So pretty much confidentiality is keeping data private, keeping data secret. You want to ensure that data can only be accessed by those intended. So if data is not intended for this person to see, they should not be able to see, right? And now we're gonna look at integrity. Now, integrity basically speaks to the data being changed in an unauthorized state. So our data being altered that should not be altered, or changed, pretty much. So integrity speaks to data integrity in that it should not be changed. If it's not intended to change, that data should stay in a state that it is intended, and so forth. So just to give you an example of that, say for instance, I'm an IT person within a certain company. That deals with pretty much transactional data. I should not be able to change data in a way where it pretty much facilitates what I want the data to be. So if I'm sending someone an information, the information that I send to that person, when that person received that information, it should be in a state whereas when it left my component, so for instance, my computer, when that person received that data, it should still be in that form. You do have cases whereas information is being traveled, it is intercepted and changed. Attacks vectors like those would be called man-in-the-middle attacks. So what integrity speaks to is that data in a state stays in that state. It is not altered or changed in any form of way. And beside that, you'll see access controls. So access control meaning that persons who, say for instance, data owners, they have the required permissions or access to not alter data in any misconfigurational way. Also, we have hashing. Now, basically hashing is what you would call a one-way digest value. Once you place data in a particular algorithm, it will give you a fixed length random values, like a string of values, a long set of values. And what that basically does, it just proves that data in its current form, that hash value needs, if you were to take that data and run it through that same algorithm, the value should be the same. So hashing is one of the main methods that we use to actually show that data was not changed in any form of way, right? Is that clear to anyone? Just let me know if you guys are not understanding. If you have any questions, just send your message and we can relay that information to you. All right, so moving on, availability. Now what availability, oh, I see someone raise the hand. Dwayne, could you allow that person to ask their question or something?
Mr. Forbes, I had a hard time hearing you, but when it does get cleared, I'm still not understanding. I know that you said cybersecurity is the protection of electronic systems, networks, and data from cyber criminals, but I'm still trying to figure it out. What is it? I'm still trying to understand it.
Sorry, I didn't hear that last part. Could you say that again?
I'm still trying to understand it. Maybe I could get your email so you could explain it to me a little bit better, because I don't understand.
Okay, what are you not understanding? What aspect of it are you not grasping? Everything. All right, probably we can talk offline and I can explain it to you more further. That's okay? All right, no problem.
Thank you.
No problem. Sure. Now, as it relates to availability, this now speaks to the whole concept of persons being able to access data when they need that data. You will have cases where systems are taken down, whether permanently or temporary, and many issues can be the cause of that. On a security basis, if, say for instance, a data breach were to occur, someone inflated or penetrated a network and cause data to be corrupted, systems to be taken down. Now, if that's basically a business and something like that were to occur, now persons would have problem accessing those business resources because, you know, a hacker pretty much came into the system, found data, corrupted it. So now that information or those resources are no longer usable, which can hamper business, so to speak. So what availability speak to is that data pretty much is needed when legitimate users need it. And we have certain controls in place to help foster that. So what you will see is backups. So backups essentially are having systems mirrored or having copied of that system. So in case the primary source were supposed to be taken down, you now have a secondary source to pretty much rely on. And load balancers would be, so for instance, this Zoom application. So Zoom can pretty much take, for instance, a certain amount of users. Now, they may have features whereas you may have to pay to get additional users, and what that would do, it would allocate a certain amount of network space to accumulate a load. So for instance, Zoom in its standard state can only support 14 users. If it were supposed to be upgraded, it can now facilitate 100 users. Load balancers would pretty much facilitate that. So for instance, Dwayne was supposed to reach out to Zoom and ask them, hey, you know, we have a big session and we need X amount of users. And do you have any services that can facilitate that? He would reach out back to him and say, yes, we do. But in the background, you pretty much have load balancers that are pretty much facilitating that ecosystem, whereas a lot of users can connect to the system and it's still maintained. It's not taken offline, right? So reasons to consider cybersecurity. Now, cybersecurity, all right, I see we have a raise hand. Adwin, can you facilitate that person?
So basically, load balancers is like when GPS does like load shedding to prevent too much traffic on their network and prevent it from crashing.
Pretty much, yep, pretty much, yeah. That's the essence of it, yeah.
All right, thank you.
No problem. All right, so reasons to consider cybersecurity. Now, cybersecurity skill is very much in demand. And given that we're in an era now where everything is digital, you have a lot of cyber attacks being taken into play. And many businesses right now are pretty much suffering from data breaches and financial losses because they don't really have a set cybersecurity team in place in their organization. And believe me, cybersecurity or data breaches can be very catastrophic. I mean, companies are losing millions of dollars just to get their system back online and to pretty much remediate the damage that was caused by these data breaches. So it's a skill that is very much in demand and it will continue to grow. Cybersecurity jobs compared to other IT-related jobs pays good. A lot of you may be, you know, happy about that, but it's actually true because there is such a big gap in terms of the skill sets that is required for cybersecurity, especially as you climb to that stages in terms of if you're in the cyber field and you matriculate to more advanced technical stuff in the field, now that will attract better pay. And of course, compared to other IT-related roles, such as probably a desktop administrator or a network engineer or a system admin, cybersecurity, because it pretty much laps into every field within a business. anything that requires data to be processed, there is an element of cybersecurity that needs to be fostered here. So because of this, cybersecurity, if you have the experience, if you have the motivation, if it's a field that you are driven by and you get your foot into the works, you can demand good paying figures for IT-related job. And later down in the slide, I'm going to speak about certain careers, certain core areas within cybersecurity that persons might not be aware of, depending on what stages persons are within those categories. It requires, they get good money, so to speak. All right, so we live in the digital age. Our world right now is driven by data, and data needs to be protected. That's just the bottom line. And the only how you can protect data, you need cybersecurity principles, methodologies, and methods to actually help in protecting data. All right. Cybersecurity is broad. There are many areas to choose from. So there are technical areas within cybersecurity. So if you're someone that loves to get your hands dirty, you know, there are aspects within cybersecurity that you may be interested in. There are other areas that are not so technical. So if you're a book smart person, you love to read and so forth, you like to write research papers, there are areas within cybersecurity where you may level or direct that skill to. So it's a very broad field, and it kind of laps into other areas as well, because, say for instance, just an example, you have a network person that deals with the overall connectivity of systems, so systems within a network, to get them to talk to each other. You would have a network person pretty much implement that. However, that network person now needs to know that if computers are communicating with each other, they need to communicate in a secure manner. So he now would have to configure that system to make sure that however computers are communicating, it's communicating in a secure manner. It's communicating securely. All right, is that clear? Any questions on that part? No? All right, so let's move on. So cybersecurity and threat management. Now, threat management is basically a framework often used by cybersecurity professionals to manage the life cycle of a threat in an effort to identify and respond to it with speed and accuracy. The foundation of threat management is a seamless integration between people, process, and technology to stay ahead of threats. And I'm gonna pretty much break that down as we go along. Now, there are three variant areas within threat management, threat management being one of them. And then now you have risk management and information security. So threat management is basically the process of identifying threats, analyzing that threat, and seeking ways and means to mitigate it. Now, threat factors can fall into specific areas, and you have threats that are not necessarily directed to just hackers or so. Even weather elements can be source of threat, and I'm going to pretty much get into that. So if you look at threat sources, I have pretty much a few pointers here that I'm gonna speak on. And if you don't understand each, just raise your hand and I'll explain that over, but I'll make it understandable as possible. Now, adversarial sources. Now, these can be internal and external persons within an organization. So for instance, you own a company, you have a business, and you have people employed. If persons, say for instance, one of your employees disgruntled, is unhappy, he doesn't like how the environment is, sometimes it will cause him to do things that are unethical, such as going on social media and plastering your business in a negative light, leaking data that should be considered private, in the public domain, things of that sort. And those can have negative repercussions within a business settings. Now for external sources, you have companies that do liaison with external entities, like third parties. So for instance, so I work at JN. JN does business with a lot of third-party groups that would actually come in and render their service to kind of help JN's core business processes. Now, those external persons will need access to enter our systems, and it is our prerogative to ensure that when they access our system, it is done in a secure way. So when they reach onto our networks, they're not viewing things that they should not be viewing. They are not accessing things or resources that they should not be accessing. Things of that sort. Now we're going to move on to accidental threat sources. Now, accidental threat sources pretty much talk to things that happen in an accidental way. So for instance, someone is working on a file and they accidentally deleted it. Or say for instance, an IT person is making changes to a system and it happens to take that system down. Things like those would be considered accidental threat sources. Some of them may be overlooked and some of them might be intentional. And in a sense, it depends on the whole nature of that. So accidental threat sources is something that is actually very common. You find a lot of these happen. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, structural failures. This has to do with pretty much equipments. So let's look at pretty much Jamaica in a sense. For instance, even GPS. A lot of time they bring out advices that, hey, you know, we need to upgrade our systems and it's going to be taken offline or so forth. So for instance, a transformer got blown up or one of the power plants, something got hit by lightning, things of that nature. So the equipments that are used to facilitate or run a business, if those happen to be taken offline or damaged, now that would be considered structural threat sources. And we have environmental threat sources. Now that would be like pretty much what we're seeing now. With all of this rain and flooding, can be hurricanes, tornadoes, typhoon, things of that nature. And in a sense, if you want to mitigate environmental threat sources, the most you can do is move your business to somewhere where certain weather elements doesn't affect it. So if an area is prone to flooding, it doesn't really make any sense you set up a business there, because when you have excessive rain, that flooding is going to affect your business. So those are those threat sources structured in a sense, and it pretty much speaks to each element of that. Now we're going to move on to risk management. Now, risk is basically vulnerability times threat. And vulnerability is basically a weakness in a system. So for instance, you have, let's just keep it simple. You have a computer that is running an outdated version of Windows. Now that would be considered a vulnerability, because if it's outdated, that means it's prone to attack. Someone enters your system and sees something that is outdated, it makes it now more easier for them to actually break into your system more, steal data, corrupt data, things of that nature. Now the threat would be that person, that attacker that would actually go into your system and pretty much mess your whole system up. They would pretty much exploit that vulnerability or make use of that vulnerability to carry out whatever malicious actions they would want to happen. So risk is basically vulnerability times threat, right? And there are aspects of risk management or risk on a whole that is subjective, and they're broken up into various categories. So what we have is risk control, and risk control pretty much speaks to how you manage risk, right? So the first point we're going to look at is mitigating. Now, with risk mitigation, it pretty much speaks to the whole concept of, are you taking steps to get rid of this risk factor? So for instance, if you have, let's go back to the same example that we have with the outdated operating system. The risk in that sense would be that outdated operating system. To mitigate that, you would either throw away that computer or upgrade it to a more secure operating system. Now that would be considered mitigating that risk because you're now taking steps to ensure that it doesn't happen. It is pretty much mitigated. It's thrown out its address, right? And now we're gonna speak on avoiding risk. Now, avoiding pretty much deals with, avoiding risk pretty much deals with if you're looking to avoid a risk. Say for instance, you have, oh my God, my thought process just left me. Just give me a second, guys. I have some notes here that will help me out. All right. So avoiding risk basically speaks to the whole concept of if you have a risk factor within your environment. And let's also look back at the same key element here of the whole having a computer that has a outdated operating system on it. To avoid that risk, what you would basically do is you would, like I said, it kind of tie back to mitigating that risk, so to speak. So to avoid that risk factor of having any negative effects on your environment, you could, like I said in the previous element, to update that operating system or pretty much to get rid of it, so to speak. So it's dynamic in a way and it kind of ties back to mitigating risk, right? Now, transferring risk. This has to do with you leeching on or engaging a third party to pretty much facilitate some of the risk factors that you may experience. So for instance, you have a business and you have fire insurance. So if, so for instance, God forbid your system or your building was supposed to catch a fire and burn down, the insurance company now would pretty much facilitate that. They would actually deal with all of the damage and cover all of the loss. So that would pretty much be an indication that you are now transferring that risk to someone else. Now, accepting risk means that you're okay with the risk factor. It doesn't bother you. And pretty much what we see within the cyberspace is that if there is a risk factor, if the cost to actually get rid of that risk factor is more than the damage that risk factor would cost, then it's pretty much okay to accept that risk, because if you're going to perform a strategy or come up with a strategy or a way to fix it, if that outweighs the damage that it might cost, then that is pretty much validated. You can accept that risk. It won't pretty much have any major damage applied to your business or software. And risk can be categorized in two factors, that is quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative is very deep, so to speak. I just saw someone raise their hand. Dwayne, can you facilitate that person?
Hey, hello, Mr. Forbes. You said something about if the cost outweighs the risk, then they basically do not implement the necessary things they need to do.
That is correct.
I could see that. Would you consider that a good thing?
Well, it depends. It depends, because why would you implement something? You have a risk factor. You have something that is considered a risk. If the resources that you're going to use to actually get rid of that risk pretty much outweighs the damage that that risk would cause, then what is the investment? What is the benefit of implementing that strategy then, right? That is how businesses look at it. Because at the end of the day, you know, persons are looking for a return in investment. And no one is gonna pretty much spend a lot of money to fix a problem, whereas if that problem were to occur, it won't cost as much resources or as much money if they had implemented or they had taken that strategy to correct it. So it's something that has to be balanced, because organizations are very keen when it comes on to spending money and allocating resources. So it would not necessarily be a good idea to actually implement something to fix this thing if it pretty much outweighs the cost. It's not financially feasible. That's how businesses look at it. Is that clear? Did that answer your question? I take that silence as a yes. All right. So moving on. So, okay. All right. All right, John, thank you. So like I was saying, risk is pretty much categorized in two factors, quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative is very deep. I'm not gonna get much into it, but pretty much quantitative means that you actually use numerical values to pretty much demonstrate how risky something would be. Now, it would even go back to that example that we just spoke about. If you have a risk factor, if you want to put in a control, if that control actually outweighs the benefit of fixing that risk, then it would not be feasible. So that figure would pretty much be now in terms of money. So that would be classified or considered a quantitative risk factor. Now, qualitative is more objective. It speaks to if something is of high risk, medium risk, or low risk. That is pretty much what qualitative risk factors would be considered into. All right. And lastly, information security. Now, with information security, it speaks to just the general consensus of threats and risks, so to speak. So for instance, software attack. And I'm gonna speak more about this in upcoming subjects. The software attack means pretty much malicious software that is used to carry out negative connotations, or they have negative outcomes. And vulnerabilities, like we spoke about, is pretty much the weaknesses in systems. Something is vulnerable, that means it has weaknesses. Identity theft, I'm actually seeing some messages coming. Let me just see if those are related to me. All right. Sorry about that, guys. So like I was saying, identity theft. Now, identity theft is something not necessarily big in Jamaica, but on the international scene, it is very much a big thing. I actually read there was an article published, I think this week, whereas someone wrote an article speaking about how her TRN number was used to actually import goods, and tax registration actually reached out to her in pretty much accepting payments or things of that nature. Tax, I guess, with relating to the goods that were imported into the country. And she was unaware of that. So that just goes to show kind of much there are certain flaws within our custom systems, in that someone can actually harvest a TRN number from someone they don't know and use that as a means to conduct business imposing as that person. So being that Jamaica is taking that toll into the digital eras, I do believe we're going to find cases of this being increased, whereas persons have identity elements posing as people they are not, and it's going to cause major problems. One of the key thing is PII, which means personal identified information. Now, in Jamaica, I don't think we as persons actually value data. We don't necessarily have that mindset where things that can identify us, we pretty much keep them safe or view them in a light whereas this thing needs to be dealt with in a very secure manner. I see people go to places and they just issue out their driver's license, their TRN without thinking, all right, if this person were supposed to actually acquire my TRN number, can they use it in a malicious way? You have entities that do require it, but persons misplace the TRN numbers and the driver's license and the ID cards. Like, it's very common, and things like these, if someone is smart enough to actually take that information, they can use that identity or those information off of those misplaced cards and use it in a malicious way. So I'm imploring all of you guys to ensure that anything that can identify you, handle it with care. It's not something you should just take lightly. All right. Also, theft of equipment. Now, this is something that speaks to if you have an equipment. So for instance, let's just keep it simple, your mobile phone, right? And you use it to pretty much everyday use. If your phone was supposed to be stolen and someone were supposed to access the information on it, would it cause great threat to you? Now, we have capabilities whereas if your phone is stolen, you can have it locked down remotely, you can wipe it remotely, things of that sort. So those are those pretty much mitigation steps to actually facilitate if equipment were supposed to be stolen. You have other elements such as what you would call it now, disencryption. So what you would find is that a disk is encrypted fully. So if someone were supposed to steal that data, they would be asked for a PIN or a password. And if they do not know that password, they won't be able to access that system. And if that password is not accessed or pretty much put in, there is no way you can pretty much gain data from that device because it's encrypted. So even if you were supposed to bypass that login screen, the data would be in a form where it's just gibberish. It would be just garbage. So even if someone malicious tried to access that data, they wouldn't be able to read it or use it in whatever way, because now that data is pretty much in a form where it's unreadable, it's unusable. So that speaks to theft of equipment. All right. So we're gonna go into a session break. I think I've been talking a lot. So I'm just gonna throw out a question to each group, and I guess Dwayne and Shani is gonna facilitate this. What you're gonna pretty much discuss in your group now is the CIA of cybersecurity, and just give one example for each. So I touched on that, so confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So speak within your groups with each other, and just explain what it is and give one example for each. So Dwayne, I'm gonna
Yeah, Roel, I just want you to just repeat what they're supposed to do in their breakout room again. Just repeat the example.
Okay, so you're gonna pretty much explain what the CIA of cybersecurity is and give one example for each.
Okay, the CIA for cybersecurity and give one example of each. Alrighty. Where's my handy dandy Dwayne?
Right here. And just before you go, Royal, just for the benefit of everyone, CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and the A?
Availability.
There we go. Right, cool. Another thing you can talk about in your group is whether or not any of you have been have suffered any effects of this whole cybersecurity threat. Have anybody ever broken into your computer? You've missed funds from your account. You realize that there are things on your phone that you never put there. I mean, anything like that. If you've ever experienced anything like that, then now is an opportunity to just talk among yourselves in the group. And then when we come back, we can share one or two of those experiences as well. So great. Thank you so much so far, Ruel. Very useful information, especially in this digital age where, as someone mentioned in the chat, our entire lives are on the laptops or on the cell phone, and so on. And as we move further and further to digital currency and those things, it's going to be increasingly important to have those things be very secure and so on. So I'm just doing that quick chat so that I can do the breakout rooms, and the rooms are created now, so everybody can jump into their rooms and have that discussion. See you back in 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Point. Again, apologies for cutting you off mid-sentence if that was the case.
Well, I just realized, or I found out, that almost all the members in my group had suffered some kind of, or has been a victim of some kind of cyber threat. It's incredibly unfortunate for sure, but yeah, as we get further, as we keep putting our lives more and more online, as things become increasingly digital, it's something that we're gonna face. It's just not, it's not when, it's not, if, it's a matter of when, sadly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I heard some of those experiences as I was hopping from group to group as well. Anybody else? All right. Brandon, I'm unmuting you now. You can go right ahead.
So it hasn't affected me directly, but it affected like my close friend, where their Snapchat was actually hacked, and because of that, so like because they as a business, they linked their Snapchat to their PayPal account. So this, after they hacked it, they started drawing out money. They weren't aware of it until their bank overseas called them and notify them of like, why you buying buying the notice spending patterns outside their norm. They know that they usually spend X amount monthly, and they're exceeding that from stories that they don't see based on their record. God bless First World countries that actually does a better job at monitoring these things than some of our local things. So currently they have PayPal has partially refunded them, and the matter is still with CTOC and cybercrimes being investigated.
Gotcha.
So it's still an ongoing. But sadly, we don't have much cyber laws that will really, anything. So we'll see how it plays out.
Indeed. And you're right. And next week, we're going to be touching a little bit on artificial intelligence and those kinds of stuff that help businesses and companies to do just what you're saying, track spending patterns. And when you see something that's outside of the norm, they're able to flag it. And we had that instance 2 years ago. We were buying stuff on Amazon, and after a while, Amazon kind of say, hey, this is not the kind of stuff you are normally used to buying, and they blocked it. We couldn't do anything, and they sent us an email just to confirm that this is definitely things that we are looking to purchase. Luckily, it was stuff that we were looking to purchase. It's just that we were purchasing 4 participants. And so it was a little outside of the norm. But you're right, it's something that we need to catch up with locally. And hopefully Roel can tell us if he's seen trends locally as it relates to our companies, banking industries, other entities moving in that direction. And certainly COVID has thrown us all into that direction. So we can get him to comment on that when we return there. I see another hand from John, so I'm going to take John's hand as well.
Yes, hello everyone. In my group, we talked about the different elements of the CIA. Generally, we spoke about if we had experiences with cyber breaches, etc. Luckily, none of us did. However, I was compelled to share that right now the banks are going through hell because they're losing millions of dollars, and even if your information may be secure, that's why I asked the question to Mr. Forbes earlier in terms of what he said about the risk versus the costing, because right now, because of certain things, right now you find that people are being more and more vulnerable. Example, you may have your card, you have an account that's perfectly secure, you go to the ATM, you make no online purchases. However, somebody could still come into the ATM with a card which runs some kind of random number into the ATM and perhaps randomly selects your account and withdraw some monies. And it is happening. I have seen it firsthand, and I just want to compel people that with the introduction of the digital currency, it may look to solve some of these issues. I'm not sure why Jamaica has not implemented it, but they have things that in place, but it's a lot of money to have a lot of systems in place to fix these things.
Yeah, thanks for that intervention, John. And again, something I'll throw in Roel's lap so that he can also address some of what he's seen and the trends that he's seen locally. I know we need to move to the first world standard. It's expensive, but we will certainly try to move in that direction. All right, I'm seeing no other hands. So Roel, it's back over to you.
Thank you, Dwayne. All right, so just before I get back to the presentation, just to speak on what Dwayne had asked, and thank you guys for participating in that session break. All of you guys' input was valid, and for those who may have experienced any form of cyber breaches or any negative impact as relates to cyber life, it's very unfortunate, but things like these do happen. And to be honest, or frank with you guys, it's just gonna get worse, because one of the things that we notice, especially within the corporate life or corporate workforce, is that many persons have behaviors or practices that are not really secured in a sense. So even though we train persons, when we make them know what to look out for, persons are still not heeded, are not placing caution on what they do. So many times it pretty much just boils down to that. So anything that you do, whether your personal life or company, ensure that it is done in a secure manner. And the other aspect of my presentation is going to talk about common cybersecurity threats and how you can identify those and mitigate those. As it relates to digital currency, I'm not versed in that field, to be honest with you guys. I'm aware of the fact that I think BOJ is now looking to implement something like that. And digital currency has a lot of vectors that play into it. It's not something that is very simple, given the resources needed to operate it. It's very extensive. And of course, digital currency is, in a sense, decentralized. So Bitcoins and so forth, it's not something that is easily regulated. So even though first world countries might have this initiative implemented and they're benefited from it, places like Jamaica or other third world countries, so to speak, might have issues are we may have to address our infrastructure first before we get on board with that. It's the future, to be honest with you, and we're definitely heading into that direction. So let's just see how things play out. All right, so let me just go back into my presentation. Just share my screen. All right, can everyone see my screen? Okay.
Yes, we're seeing it.
All right, perfect. All right. Sorry, guys. So now we're gonna look into the common type of cybersecurity threats. There's a few, well, not a few, but a number of the most known ones that I'm going to be speaking on. There are others there that I'm not going to mention for this particular courses, but just the ones that are mostly out there in the cyber realm and those that are affecting especially businesses. So the first one we're going to look at is, and pretty much these are what I'm going to speak of. So malware, phishing, ransomware, Trojan, DOS, Adware, and viruses. So these are the common threat factors that I'm going to speak of, right? So the first one that we're going to look on is malware. Now, malware is pretty much any software that is malicious. How it runs.
Sorry, Roel, just back with the mic thing again. Somebody is saying it's a little muffled. I don't know what magic you worked the last time, but if you could rework that magic, that would be awesome.
Well, I didn't make any changes. It's the same mic I'm working with that before.
All right, no problem. Well,
sure.
Hopefully it gets progressively better then. Great.
Okay, all right. So like I was saying, guys, so malware is pretty much any software that acts in a malicious way. That is considered malware. Now, malware is very extensive, so to speak, and there are a lot of triads that surround malware in a way. Now, many persons are, let me just leave it, pretty much keep it in the context of Jamaica as it relates to malware. What I find is that persons especially like free stuff, or, you know, I mean, the culture is changing, but before that was pretty much the mentality. And when persons go online looking for free streaming softwares or looking for movie sites that they can view free content on, a lot of these places are havens for malware. Like, to be honest with you guys, nothing is free. There is nothing considered free. Someone is not gonna spend millions of dollars creating a software, or pretty much making a software available, cracking a software, so to speak, and making it available for everyone to use freely. There is something underlying that has some form of malicious intentions to it. So, for instance, those of you who might be gamers in the past, you know, and use BitTorrent, a lot of the games that you find, they came with cracks, right? And you had to apply that crack to pretty much remove the restrictions from that game so you can use it freely. Me at the time, and many persons at the time, didn't know that actual crack, what it does, it creates a backdoor into your machine. So once you run that crack, what it actually do is open a session to another server or another computer somewhere else. And now persons would actually now have access into your system. Many persons don't know this, and that's why if you have antivirus on your computer and it finds a crack, it's gonna flag it as malicious, because essentially that is what it does. Pretty much opens a backdoor onto your computer so someone can actually access it without you even knowing. So that is something to keep in mind. A lot of things too, as it relates to free downloading stuff. Many persons don't know that there's actually this concept in cybersecurity. I'm still having problems pronouncing it, but it's actually called steganography, something along that line. I'm still having problems pronouncing it. But the concept of that is what it does, it pretty much merges software together. So you can have an image file. I can pretty much take an image file and embed malware into it or weaponize that file and actually use it to infect your computer. And that is going to pretty much tie into phishing that I'm going to speak on later on in this subject. So any file can be weaponized, so to speak. Music file, Word files, PDF files, anything can be weaponized. It can have malware actually embedded into it. And once you click on that file, scoops, you are directed to probably a website and a drive-by download take place, and just like that, your computer is infected. So malware pretty much has its purpose, and its purpose is pretty much straightforward: to steal data, to get access to your system, right? To corrupt data, so to speak, or use your data now to benefit that person, right? And of course, to mitigate malware, it's very essential to have an antivirus application installed on your computer and phone. And I'm not talking about the free antivirus software. You go on Google, you get something like Avast free, Komodo free, and install on your computer. I'm actually talking about a subscription. You pay for a license, and now once you get that license into your antivirus software, it is more secure that way. I see we have a hand, a question. Dwayne, can you allow that person to?
Yes, getting there right now. Yes, John.
Yes, I was just asking, you said about the software, but I realized with the Windows update, it's now, the antivirus is now incorporated into Windows Defender. Do we still have to get a software?
Microsoft Defender, to be honest with you, I see it as rubbish, so to speak. Like anything that has to do with security, Microsoft is not good at it. That's just my personal belief. It is their default software for antivirus, but if it was that good, you would actually find more persons using it. It wouldn't happen to have these other rigmaroles and runarounds. So I would say get a third-party antivirus application, which is more good. Malwarebytes is good. So for home usage, Malwarebytes is very good. And they actually offer yearly subscription, say about 70 US a year. And it comes with a comprehensive type of protection for your machine. So you're getting anti-malware, anti-spyware, web tracking, web blocking. So if you happen to browse to a website that is considered malicious, it would actually block it. So Malwarebytes is definitely good as it relates to a personal basis, and it's very essential. I encourage everyone, like, you need to have an antivirus, anti-malware application. If you're someone, especially you do a lot of online buying or so forth, it's essential that your device is protected. I see we have other race on.
Yes, getting that access now.
Yes, hello. My question is, I heard that Linux operating system is more secure than Windows. So is that true? Like it's less likely to get malware and such.
That is just what is put out there, but personally speaking, it's not. In some regard, it is more secure, but the truth is, because Linux is not used that much, if you're supposed to do like look into the global market, you find Mac and Windows pretty much dominate the field, especially Windows. And that is why you find a lot of threat factors more geared toward it. I guarantee you that if Linux was used as heavily as Windows, you'd be surprised the amount of viruses and malware that would be out there for them. Trust me. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily more secure, but because Windows is used mostly, that's why a lot of cyber criminals pay more attention and give more into creating malicious stuff for that. So that is just what is put out there. But personally, I don't think Linux is more secure, to be honest. I don't think so. There's a lot of stuff you can do with Linux. And pretty much Linux is actually used as a vector to compromise Windows, so to speak. There's actually Kali Linux out there that is a Linux distro that is built for ethical hacking, and bad people use it as well. And I'm going to speak more about that as I get into various cybersecurity fields. So
yeah, yes, Roy, just a quick
secure.
one before. There's a question. I'm a little late, but did anyone mention security for apps? And then there is another one. Somebody says, I have a MacBook and I need a, oh, never mind.
Okay, okay. As it relates to security for apps, if you download app from third-party sources, then there's no security for those, so to speak. However, if you have apps that are from the Play Store and legitimate sources, then no, there's not so much a need to worry, because apps that are signed and are built by legitimate sources, they get constant updates. But however, if you download apps that from sources that are not verified, they're not being updated, you can't even tell who the developer is, it's not signed, and those come at a greater risk, right? I see there's another hand raised.
Hi, that question about the app was from me. Okay. What I actually want to know is, so I'm in the process of creating an app, right?
Okay.
So I wanted to know what are some of the things that I can do to protect it.
Okay, all right, no problem. So depending on the nature of your application, if it's an app that requires user input, you want to ensure that your application, in terms of inputs being inserted by the user, that it's properly sanitized. Meaning if you have a field that is only supposed to get a numerical value, a int value, a double value, ensure that whatever data is placed in that field is numerical. So you're pretty much doing your checks, right? Because a lot of times what you find is that when developers are actually building app, they don't build it with security in mind. So their applications can be exploited in the simplest way of form. So ensure that you do your checks when users input, when they input information, so to speak. If your app is built in a way where communication is a key factor of it, data is being transferred over the wire, ensure that you use proper protocols. So your TLS, SSL is not used much, so your TLS would be a good. Ensure that you use protocols that actually have data being transferred in a secure manner. So your cryptography would be a major part of that. And you can pretty much just look in, those are just the things on top of my head right now, but there are other methodologies as it relates to secure coding. You can just do a brief Google search and find out things that you need to look at, ensuring that whatever application you're building is built in a secure manner. And this is something that I'm just gonna state this. As it relates to cybersecurity, the more secure a system is, the harder it is to use. So it's kind of, there are certain inconveniences that come where security is concerned. If a system is too secure, it's gonna be hard for people to use. And if it is very convenient, it's easy to use, then somewhere along that line, security might not be, on a big scale. So there has to be a balance, so to speak, right? So thank you for that question, but ensure that the app that you're building, ensure that you have security in mind. Do as much research as possible to ensure that how you're building it, once it's deployed, it's secure, right? Alrighty. So now we're gonna move on. So the next aspect that we're gonna look on is phishing. Now, this is one of the major things that is affecting businesses right now. In fact, during this week, I got an email from Netflix. I could tell just by looking at it that this is a phishing event. This is a phishing email. Like the wording was it had so many grammatical errors in it. I could easily take that link, run it in my sandbox environment, and I could actually tell that the source in which it was going to, it was Netflix related, right? The IP address of it was spoofed. So what the recipient of that email, it had no linkage back to Netflix, pretty much corporation or anything Netflix related. So so phishing email right now is a very big thing. Like a lot of persons right now are getting tricked into disclosing personal information and getting their systems breached because of phishing attempt. And phishing attempt pretty much incorporates social engineering, so to speak, because a lot of times people will get emails and they don't know what to look for. There are many clues within them and they pretty much just go over people's head, right? If you are looking at running a business and you have, it pretty much has a lot of digital components to it, this is an area where you want to train your workers in, right? How to identify phishing emails, because trust me, this is one of the key ways that persons actually get into a lot of companies' network. I remember I spoke about things being weaponized. So for instance, JN Bank, where I work, a lot of times persons will come on board like they want to open an account or they want to take out a loan. I mean, you're dealing with people out in the work environment, right, in the public domain. So a lot of times is that you will find persons that try to engage a representative, and who knows, they might just weaponize a file. The user might say, all right, a customer might come in and say, all right, I want to open a bank account. And GN representatives would actually give them a set of documents to fill out or so forth. That person is savvy enough. They can actually use those files, weaponize them, and when they send them back to that Jade email, more than in any case, if that link is clicked on, you know, systems can be compromised. However, we have controls in place. If that were supposed to happen, we would see it on the fly and would be able to counteract it. But phishing email is very much a big thing right now. And pretty much the purpose of phishing email is to, you know, get onto people's system, steal information, have people actually divulge their personal information with ease. Gone are the days when man just go sit down in our room and hack away to get into the system. Those Hollywood kind of paint a very a big lie, so to speak, in terms of how hacking and how security breaches actually occur. Like people are being socially engineered into divulging information. Like these hackers, like, I don't know, they must study the human brain psychology on a different level to get people to disclose information. No man not gonna sit down in a room and hack for hours and days just to break into the system. That's not the reality. A man go get an email, weaponize it, draft it in a way where it's very convincing, have someone click on that link, and then now that link will be able to direct that person to a malicious source where malware and so forth will be installed on their computers. So a lot of key things to identify phishing emails. If you get an email, ensure that, especially if you are not aware of the source, ensure that you read it concisely. Look out for grammatical errors. You might find places, especially countries that are not, English is not their first language, but they're very invested into scamming and a lot of bad stuff. And a lot of times they would draft emails and so forth and send it out in the public domain. So that is one aspect that you need to look at.
if you get an email and it is very urgent, like it will say, hey, you need to click on this now, it's your account have a lockdown. Chances are it's a phishing email. If it was something that was very important, you would be contacted by a legitimate source. They would walk you through the process of getting whatever actions that needed to be taken done in a very meticulous or orderly manner. No email should be asking for sensitive information. So if you get an email and it asks you your birth date, your name, your bank book, your bank account, all of these things, that is definitely a phishing email. It doesn't matter. If you get an email from Scotia, assumedly from Scotia, stating that, you know, there were some system problems and we need to restore back your information, kindly give us your bank account, your name and so forth, that is definitely a phishing attempt. No legitimate business is going to ask you for your personal information over the phone or via email, right? Spoofing email is a very big thing as well. You need to ensure that you read who the recipient is. Look at the email. A lot of times you will get some emails and it doesn't even make sense. You definitely know that it is a phishing email from there. And of course, if an email is from a source that is unknown to you, chances are it is a phishing email. So these are things that you need to keep in mind. All right, guys? All right, so now we're going to look at ransomware. Now, ransomware, along with phishing, is one of the biggest data threat factors right now out there in the corporate world. If you were supposed to even do a random Google search on the latest data breaches, chances are ransomware you'll find in most of those. What ransomware basically is, it's a malware, so to speak, that pretty much encrypts your data. So we talked about confidentiality in terms of encrypting data to keep it secure. Now, malicious persons actually found a way to use that to be something bad. So when a cyber criminal happens to get onto your network, what they would do is pretty much encrypt all of your data. And what they would do next is ask for a payment, normally in Bitcoin because it's hard to trace that way. And then now, if you pay that money, then they would give you a decryption key and you'll be able to decrypt your data. Might sound simple to you, but if this happens in a corporate environment, trust me, the money that they're asking for is like in the billions. I'm not asking a complete play money, like them asking for some serious money. And of course, if you're running an international business and something like this happened to you, you know, it's a problem. Worst case scenario, if you don't have backups in place, your business just dead right. So ransomware right now is a very big thing, right? And there is a lot of variants of ransomware out there. I don't know if you guys have heard about the WannaCry ransomware. I think about 2 years ago, it was out there in the public domain. It was very big, like a lot of places were getting hit by it. So that was pretty much an example of ransomware. And the point of ransomware, like I said, is to hold data hostage. They encrypt your data, you can't use it unless you pay that money, and then now they give you a decryption key and then you're able to use it from that. Now, ways to mitigate ransomware attacks. Again, ensure that your devices are properly protected by a legitimate antivirus. These are built in a way where they can see ransomware attacks coming in and they can stop them right on the go. So that is very essential. Businesses need to have their data backed up, whether it's in a cloud storage, whether it's off-site, whether it's using additional hardware or tapes. Backing up data is very essential. On a personal basis, like persons might have a Google Drive that they may pack their data up in. That is good in a sense, because now Google Drive would be now responsible for the security controls in terms of your data being protected. But backing up data is very essential as a mitigation factor for ransomware attacks. practicing safe browsing. Like I said, a lot of times ransomware get into corporate network is because persons visit a site that they shouldn't be visiting. And of course, corporates would have security controls in place, whereas users can only visit sites that are business related. So anything else would be blocked. But you find anomalies happen from time to time. And again, if someone is engaging a customer rep, posing as a user and are given files to work with, you can actually weaponize those files, send it back to the user, and then know, for instance, if the security controls that we have in place wasn't able to pick up that, then obviously you would have a data breach or a compromise of system right here. And of course, emails. Phishing is definitely one of the key factors that make ransomware available, because a ransomware won't affect your system if it's not actually near your system. It has to find a way to get in. Unfortunately, phishing emails are one of the primary ways that these malware actually enter system. It's one of the key ways in which, malware is actually placed in a system. All right? So we're gonna now move on to Trojans. Now, pretty much a Trojan is an application that looks legitimate, but it has some malicious intentions associated with it. So even back to my example about gaming and cracks. So you download a game and it looks legitimate, it looks all right and so forth. That crack basically would be somehow similar or represented as a Trojan malware, because now it's opening a backdoor to your system where someone can actually access your system. So even though you download it and you play a game and you feel good or so forth, probably a man in your system see what you do. I go through all of your files them and so forth. You never know. So that is the whole intention of Trojan. And a lot of times, what you will find is that software come bundled with each other. So if, say for instance, a site was supposed to be compromised and you actually happen to visit or browse that site and they're having like a promotional basis. Hey, download this application, it will make your computer run faster. Worse if you have a slow machine and you say, yeah, all right, let me give it a try, right? And you download that application and you install it. Majority of the time, that software comes bundled with malware. You never know. And even though you might get that application running and it seems like it's making your computer more faster, supposedly saying that it will make your computer run faster, you have a lot of things going on in the background. So that is something that persons need to be aware of. And of course, the purpose of Trojan is to steal data, get into your system, steal data. So if you keep sensitive data stored on your computer, Trojans would actually exfiltrate that data out from your computer to someone else. Spying activities. Many Trojans come with the capabilities where it can actually screenshot your present screen, identifying what you're doing. A lot of the times it can enable your webcam without you even knowing and spy on you, seeing what you're doing in the background or whatever. It actually comes with the capability of keyloggers as well. A keylogger is pretty much a software, it tracks your keystroke. So whatever you press, it would pretty much just track that. So that is keyloggers. And of course, ways to mitigate Trojan is to keep antivirus update, ensure that you have a proper antivirus application installed on your machine and that it is working effectively and that it's kept up to date. Be very cautious when you're downloading stuff from the internet. Again, people, when you're downloading stuff from the internet, ensure that it is a valid source. It is a legitimate source. One way to ensure that a site is legitimate, when you go on a secure site, normally you will see that little padlock on top of the URL screen in that field where you enter the URL. Those are what you call now, you have certificates. It somehow ties into cryptography. It's very deep and detailed. I'm not going to go much in it, but pretty much that padlock is supposed to show you that that website is signed, it's legitimate, because a lot of times for a company or a site to actually get that green or legitimate icon, that padlock, it has to go through a legitimate source to get that. It's not something that is just distributed out and randomly assigned to that website. They actually have to go through a legitimate process to get their site secured. I saw someone raise a hand. Is there a question? Dwayne, did you see a raise hand just come in?
No, not seeing one, no.
Okay.
But in the chat is very active, persons sharing different things in the chat. Yes, that was an error. So
Okay.
yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, the chat is very active. Sorry, I have to be presented, so I can't even see what the guys are discussing. But yeah, man, keep it live.
Well, one of the comments that you would be very happy to hear is that this is very useful information. So
okay, that's good.
The chat is active because it's useful information, and also I'm finding that I'm guilty of some of the things that you're talking about. For instance, the antivirus. I am always downloading Avast, and I'm a proponent. I tell people, go and download it. I'm thinking I'm doing a good job, but I get a big slap just now when you say it's rubbish. So I'll have to sort my life out.
Well, I mean, Avast, well, I think Beat the Defender, that Windows Com is, to me, it's rubbish. But Avast is good, but if you're using the free version, there's not much you're going to get out of it. But if you're actually paying for it, there are good capabilities. I personally don't like Avast or use it. Me personally, Komodo and Malwarebytes is the two antivirus that I've actually mingled with and that I like. There are many out there, like many antivirus. So you just have to do your research and see which one works better for you. But for me personally, Malwarebytes is what I use, and like it's very good because it comes with a comprehensive security feature that it gives you the bundle. So it's not only ensuring that your computer is kept protected, but if you go on sites that can download malware to your computer, it would potentially block it.
And just to keep the conversation real, because this is a youth forum, so a lot of persons here and really have the deep pockets. Do they have a free version of Komodo and Malwarebytes and so on? I'm just asking for a friend.
Yeah, they have free versions, but free versions, you don't get the comprehensive package, unfortunately, with those. The free version comes with more stuff. But yeah, they do have free stuff. They do have free versions that actually protect your computer, but it's only for a particular time, like a 1 month or so.
All right, so there are a couple of questions, a couple of hands I see up now. So the first one is Ruth, and then we have Sachel afterwards. Ruth, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Dwayne. Quick question. I know most persons right now have access to a mobile device. What would be a software that you would recommend to protecting those persons and their data? For example, I have seen instances where my location would turn on automatically by itself. I do not do that. So that for me cause for concern. Is there anything I could do to, let's say, protect myself and my device that is concerned?
That is a very good question, Ru. As it relates to mobile, there's a lot of flaws in terms of security, unfortunately, for mobile devices. Again, if you have a mobile device and you're downloading applications from non-trusted sites, those apps may have access to internal features on your phone without you even knowing, right? So that's why I implore people, if you're downloading an app, ensure that it's from the Google Play Store, because a lot of times those apps have to be vetted. And if they need access, say for instance, to geolocation, it would ask you, it would prompt you. If you don't feel comfortable that it needs access to that, then you can deny it, right? So it pretty much just boils down to that. You do have antivirus for mobile devices. Me personally, I've never really dabbled with antivirus as relates to mobile because a lot of stuff I do on my laptop. My phone, I just use it pretty much just WhatsApp and call. There's not much interaction I'm doing with it. So on a secure basis, it's not that secure in terms of having antivirus malware, but my practices and behaviors mimics a secure manner. I only, if I need an application, I ensure that I download it from the App Store. And you might find anomalies where malicious apps may be placed in the App Store. What you find is that a lot of persons may use like bots to do reviews on those applications. So they put out fake reviews. So when you look at it and you see all these good reviews, you may say, all right, this might look legitimate. So the onus is on you, the user, to actually do further research to find out if this application is legitimate or not. Like I said, cybersecurity is not an easy feat. It does require you to actually investigate further to see if something is malicious or not. We are security professionals. We don't have the answer all the time. And you, the user, might have to go a step further in ensuring that, you know, if you're downloading an application, it's actually from a trusted source, and that if there's anything that might warrant your suspicion, you do further investigations into it. To be honest with you, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just to add before you continue, my apologies. I am seeing here in the chat where someone is saying that the VPN is good and McAfee antivirus for mobile devices. I just wanted to hear your take on that. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So yeah, VPN is definitely good. What a VPN does is it pretty much creates a secure channel when you're going out to the internet. So whatever information that you're transferring over, it's done in a secured way. Persons won't be able to spy on what you're doing. So if you have a VPN running, it pretty much limits the rate of someone actually looking at your browsing activities and so forth. It pretty much keeps your internet activities secure and personal to you. Persons can be able to pretty much see what you're doing over the internet. So that is the whole, essentially that is the whole purpose of a VPN. As it relates, what was the other question? It slipped me. I said VPN and something else. What was the other question?
And the McAfee antivirus for mobile devices?
Oh, McAfee.
Yeah,
like
McAfee,
I said,
right.
Oh, like I said, I've never really dabbled with antivirus as it relates to mobile devices. So I don't really have a set answer for that. I have used McAfee on servers and desktops, so to speak. To be honest with you, I really don't like it, but not to say it's not effective. Like I said, there's many antivirus applications out there. Don't take my word for it. There are many for you to choose from. Some are less technical, some are very technical. It all depends on what you want, right? And that's why you have a lot of them out there. So it's just for you to do that additional research and find out which one works better for you, all right? Don't take my word for it. McAfee is good in a sense, but personally, I don't really like it. But other persons might say otherwise. So it all depends on personal preference. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, there are some other questions. 1 second. I know Miss Wisdom, I have a question as well. So 1 second for her. And then there's another hand as well. All right, Wisdom, I'll soon come back to you. Let's get Sharika.
Hi, I remember once someone mentioned to me that they do not use public Wi-Fi. The reason being that the person on the other end can see what you're browsing. Is there a way to tell if you're on a public Wi-Fi, to tell if somebody has entered your phone or something like that?
Out of the blue, no. You would have to actually do further investigations to find out if your machine was compromised or not. That's not something you just can tell by just how your device being connected to somewhere and how it's performing. It actually requires further investigation. However, you're right, public Wi-Fis are not safe to use. If you're going to use a public Wi-Fi, it's recommended to use a VPN. Like I said, what a VPN do, it opens a secure channel going out to the internet, so persons won't be able to see what you're doing. So if you connect to a public Wi-Fi and you're doing online transaction, chances are persons may be able to steal your bank information and use it to carry out other transaction unbeknownst to you. So as it relates to public Wi-Fi, VPN is the key method there to work. It's not safe to use public Wi-Fi if one's doing certain things over the internet. All right?
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Great. Sachel, you can go ahead.
Okay, so I actually have 3 questions, but they're really short. So first question, are worms and adwares form of malware or a different category?
Well, they are, so to speak. I'm gonna speak on Adware probably after this slide. As it relates to worms, worm is definitely a form of malware. And what worms basically do, they are self-replicating malware. So what you find is that they tend to use up system resources that make your computer very sluggish and slow, and they can actually replicate themselves. So, sorry, even the malware that I mentioned earlier in ransomware, the WannaCry virus, no, that was a malware that pretty much worked as a worm, and it had ransomware features on it. Worm, in a sense, it replicates itself. There was a misconfiguration with Windows. Not going to go into technicalities of this, but what it pretty much did, it actually exploited that weakness, and it was now able to replicate itself or send itself to other systems on the network, right? So worm is pretty much, that's how the whole key concept of it is. Self-replicating, and because it can replicate itself so much, it tends to slow down or make system resources very slow and so forth. Adware, on the other hand, it can be malicious in a way. I'm going to speak more on that on the other slide. So you'll get a more deeper understanding of Adware. We'll move on from this.
Yes, and one last question. I see another hand from Brandon. Brandon, you can go ahead.
I was asking what happened if you're flagged for using a VPN, because I've in the past, like in trying to like work around geo-tagging and geolocation, I used a VPN and I was actually blocked by the VPN company itself from using their service to work around geotagging and geolocation.
Yeah, so I guess it's an ongoing issue as it relates to the VPN process. What you find is that many persons use VPN for a lot of malicious stuff. So if a VPN company might deem you as using their service to pretty much escape certain boundaries. So for instance, Netflix, based on the geological location that you're in, you can only access particular information. Now, the reason for that is that when companies put out contents like probably Hollywood or other movies industries, there are certain laws and regulations that state that only persons within a certain geographical location should be able to access that content, right? So if persons are using VPN to pretty much go around that, then it pretty much is a violation of that rules and regulation because you're not in the US. So technically by law, you shouldn't have access to it. Even though you're not doing something wrong, you just want to pretty much watch that movie you heard about it or so forth. So if a VPN service provider finds that, you know, your motive for you using their service to access certain geological areas unrestricted to you before you actually included that VPN service, then I guess they're just gonna have the due diligence to say, all right, you know, it's not in conformance with their rules and regulations, so they're gonna block you. That's pretty much what I can say in regards to that.
All right, so just the last two questions I'm going to ask for the participants in the chat, and then we can continue with the presentation. There will be more time at the end for more questions and answer. Roel, I think you're really starting to ruffle a couple of feathers, and we're realizing the different loopholes that we have with our different devices. And some of us have 3 and 4 devices that we use. And as was mentioned earlier, our lives are on them. There's one question here. I'm going to try and decipher what it is. If you use cracked softwares before, is there any way to reseal or secure your device? That's one. And then the next one is VirusTotal a good website to scan items? VirusTotal.com. So those are the last two, and then we can continue with the presentation.
Yeah, man. So there's no way to, the only way you can reseal a crack on a software basis is to have an antivirus program remove it. You might delete the crack exe executable file, but chances are when that file was initially run, it had other software installed on different areas of your computer, so just deleting that alone won't necessarily kill that problem. You're going to need to have an antivirus application that actually is able to probe your system, find executable files that are sending out outbound or inbound traffic to other places outside of your computer, and if it deems it as malicious, then it would kill it. And if you know what to look for, then you can find it and pretty much delete it. As it relates to VirusTotal, yes, VirusTotal is very good. I use it a lot, especially at work. It's very useful within, especially the cyber security community. It's very detailed. It's used heavily. It's fully supported. So definitely, VirusTotal is very good, and it's open to everyone. So if you get an email with an attachment and you're not sure if it's legitimate or not, you can pretty much download it to your computer and upload it without running it, upload it to VirusTotal, and it now has a list of antivirus engines within it. It would actually scan that file and then I'll tell you if that file is secured or not. Even if you get a URL, you can copy that URL, plug it into VirusTotal. If there's any bad reputation out there where that URL is concerned, then VirusTotal would be able to tell you if it's malicious or not, or if it's safe to browse. So VirusTotal is very good, and I would recommend anyone here to use VirusTotal within your personal life. Like, it's open, and you can definitely use it to figure out if you get links, if you get attachments. You can utilize VirusTotal as a reference point to find out if a file or so forth is legitimate. I wouldn't say use it as a core feature. You still need to have antivirus installed on your machine just to keep it safe. But if you get something that your antivirus is not then pretty much flagged, then you can pretty much use VirusTotal to rectify if that file is malicious. There's one last question I'm seeing in the chat. 123 movies. A lot of these sites that offer free streaming content, they're loaded with malware. That's a given. Like I said, nothing is free, right? At the end of the day, these sites have to pay for their services. They have servers that these movies are on. And to maintain those servers, they have to generate revenues. So when you go on those sites, they will kill you with ads because they have to support that system. A lot of times too, they have malware embedded into them. When you click on a link, it would actually do a drive-by download without you even know it and infiltrate your system. And then now if you have any sensitive information on your machine, they can steal that information. And depending on how sensitive it is, it can be sold on the black market and so forth. So yeah, that is something to keep in mind, guys. All right, that was a mouthful. All right, so let's move on to presentation.
Yes, sir. Well, you're doing a good job. No worries. You're doing a good job.
All right, Shelley. All right, so denial of service. So as it relates to denial of service, what this pretty much, this ties back to availability. Denial of service means that a system is taken offline due to a malicious content. So for instance, what you'll find is that cyber criminals would actually send a lot of requests to a particular server. And if that server, say for instance, a legitimate business, let's just use Jane as an example. If someone wanted to bring Jane's system down, they weren't able to access, they weren't able to penetrate the network, so to speak. But Jane has, say for instance, the Jane Live site where people go on and do their online banking. If, for instance, someone wanted to take down that website, what they could do is they could get like group of systems, and they would just flood that website, those requests coming into that website, like send it in millions, probes it in millions. And what that would cause is that if the system is not configured to deal with that load, it would actually crash. And if it crashed, then users won't be able to go on and use it to carry out their transactions and their business and so forth. So this is what denial of service, so to speak. You have an additional one called distributed denial of service. And pretty much what that includes is that if persons infect systems, it would pretty much consider that system as a zombie or a robot. And what it would pretty much do is it would have all of those affected systems connected to command and what is the term for that again? I don't remember the term, but all of those infected systems would be connected to a central server. And what that server would do is it would send out requests to those machines, and those machines now would send out a lot of requests to other places. So for instance, they have a government site that they want to take down. It would have sent out a lot of requests to that site, potentially breaking it, killing it, actually making it unusable. So, like I said, the purpose of their DOS attack is pretty much to take systems offline, to render systems unusable, so legitimate users won't be able to access them. And you probably might wonder to yourself, why would someone want to do that? I mean, it's simple. If you have terrorist groups that don't like governments or so forth, they will take actions like this to take them down. If me as a bad mind person and my brethren have a website I want good for you, and I have the skills knowing that I can set up a system to flood his system, whereas he take it offline or support, then something I might do. So those are things that drive people to actually take malicious methods of these. And ways to pretty much mitigate this attack is if you have antivirus installed on your machine, it is able to see these requests coming in and it would just pretty much avoid them, so to speak. In corporate environments, they have their firewalls or their network devices configured in a way where certain requests, it pretty much blocks it. So if, say for instance, Jane, on our system, we see a lot of requests coming in for a particular protocol, we would just completely kill all of those. So as they're coming in the millions of probes, it won't do our system anything because they would just be dropping. It won't be affecting our system because the system is now configured. Once it sees those requests, it doesn't action it. It does throw it one side. And of course, create this disaster recovery plan. Now, this is essential for every company, right, to have a disaster recovery plan. And this is a major player in it. If your system were supposed to go offline, you would now have to go in a disaster recovery phase to get those systems back up and running. It's a very detailed subject. I'm not going to go much in it, but it is something that is used as a mitigation factor for denial of service attack. All right. So, So the next one we're gonna talk on is Adware. Someone had brought this up question before. So Adware is pretty much unwanted application used to broadcast advertisements across systems. In cases you might find Adware, they don't potentially have malicious intents associated with them, because a lot of time is that services that are deemed free, they use ads to pretty much facilitate their income spending. So, or they use ads to pretty much help them to require a pool of money so they're able to run their system. So that is the essential context of web advertisement. However, what you find is that the malicious part of it is where you have fake advertisements being propagated through networks. So if you visit a site that is not legitimate, it's malicious, you might find ads being popped up, whereas the content being relayed is actually fake, it's a scam. And if you click on those, then it will happen to pretty much infect your computer. So that is the key element as it relates to Adware. So ads are actually good because, like I said, if you have a free service running, you use ad now, the more traffic you gain, the more ads being promoted, it builds revenue. But malicious persons will actually take advantage of those. They will hijack those ads and make them embed malware into them. So when people click on them, it pretty much infects their system. So you have what is called PUP, potential unwanted programs. So a lot of times, if, let's say for instance, you guys might have seen this. You go to download Adobe Reader and it's asking you if you want Mac free live included in it. Now, essentially, that is considered an unwanted program. You just want Adobe Reader. You don't want any additional tool with it. So a lot of times when you download applications, they come bundled with other applications. So you download this application, and then you see like 3 other applications on your computer that you weren't aware of. That is actually called PUP. And the malicious content with this is that a lot of these unwanted applications, they do come bundled with malware. A lot of times too, persons may use these applications to install on your computer to use up your resources. So for instance, like Bitcoin. Bitcoin takes a lot of system resources to actually mine. And what you find is that persons now actually are cyber criminals, infect a lot of systems, and it would actually use those system resources to actually mine Bitcoin. So that is something, you know, to pretty much look out for. Now, in mitigating Adware, I see 2 questions. Let me just finish this and then we'll go into those questions. As it relates to Adware, again, antivirus is good at pretty much discovering if Adware being propagated on your system to be malicious. Be mindful of ads that you see on the internet. Some of them actually, if you click on them, they will route you to malicious sites. So it's very keen to be mindful of to practice safe browsing behaviors. You don't want every ad you see on the internet, you don't want to click it. And how ads actually work is when you visit a site, it will ask you if that they use cookies or so forth to pretty much track web activities. Or what it pretty much does, it keeps a record of sites that you visit the most. Now, how this works is, if you, say for instance, you're a person that you love to buy clothes online, you visit a lot of these sites and you shop from various sites that sell clothes and so forth. You visit these legitimate sites. Yes, legitimate sites do use cookie and they do track the website that you visit the most. If you go on other sites, non-related, you might see ads popping up about clothes. And how this pretty much works is, it pretty much ties back. So pretty much the ads, when you see them, it would actually read that cookie file from your computer and it would actually see, whereas these are the sites that you visited, and then now the ad would pretty much, from the backend point of view, it would pull up sources from close related sites or so forth and pretty much advertise those things because that is what is appealing to you. So it's dynamic in a way, but again, there are malicious connotations that are tied to it, and you have to be very aware of ads that you see displayed on the web. All right, we had a few questions. Dwayne, can you allow those persons to ask their questions?
Sure, there were questions and then there were announcements. So somebody mentioned that Joe Biden has officially won the US election. And I did my fact checking and it is really true. He's over the 270 mark. So that's that. Okay. And then Sachelle, I think, had her hand up. I'm wondering if this was from the last time. I will unmute so that we can double check that. Sachelle, you're on the floor.
Yes. Thank you, sir. My question is, my brother is asking this actually because he's interested too. So the thing is, he went on a site, on an unscrupulous site, and he downloaded an app called Game Guardian. And ever since then, there has been like he calls it a ghost stopper, like somebody is stopping his screen, and like it's opening apps and all sorts of things, and it didn't go away even though he deleted the app. So he's wondering, and factory reset. So he's wondering if there's any way to get that off.
That sounds like a consultation. That's $9.99. We're gonna talk to you off air for the answer.
Oh my, okay.
That's you. Go right ahead, Royal.
Yeah, so pretty much, yeah, you said unscrupulous. The fact that it's unscrupulous, I mean, there's nothing good related to that. And even though he removed the application, he's still seeing remnants of it being manifested. So what I can tell him to do is format that machine, back up all his data that he might need on like probably a hard drive or so forth, an external hard drive, and just wipe the computer clean. If he has antivirus, he can scan the system and then know if there's anything malicious that the antivirus might catch, it will remove that. You said it didn't work, or it's on his phone. He did a factory reset and it didn't work, then I don't know. That is very weird because factory reset would pretty much wipe everything off of the phone. Every remnants or anything. It's pretty much bringing it back to factory settings. So the only thing I can think about, for instance, if whatever site he visited, like that malware actually embedded itself into the phone framework, which is possible and which is very complicated to remove, to be honest with you. But I might need to speak with you after the year of that to find out more about it, and I can assist you more where that is concerned. So after I'm gonna leave my contacts with you guys when this presentation is over. So if you guys have any other questions and so forth, you can reach out to me and I can guide you accordingly. So I'll speak with you, Sachelle, after the year where that is concerned. All right.
Great, and there's a question from John as well.
Okay. Hello, good day. Mr. Forbes, something caught my attention in your presentation in that you were saying about the significant amount of resources it needs to produce a Bitcoin. Can you mind elaborating that? Because to my common knowledge, it takes
Okay, we seem to have lost John. Let me see if I can find him back. John. Yeah, hold on 1 second. John, let's try again. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, Mr. Forbes, I particularly took interest into something that you said about the Bitcoins and that it takes a significant amount of resources to mine. To common knowledge, I'm aware that it takes like a mainframe or something of that sort. So it's kind of interesting to me because of what's been happening with the technologies nowadays. I've been looking into it. So you mind telling me exactly how much resources?
I don't really know a specific specification as it relates to resources to mine Bitcoin. It's something I don't really follow up with. But what I can tell you is, yeah, mainframe computers. These servers come packed with a lot of resources. So compared to the traditional laptops or computers that we use with standard, say, 6 gig of memory, Intel Core i7 processors, mainframe computers come bundled with several CPUs, like with over like 1,000 gigabytes of memory, terabytes of hard drive space. But the thing with this, if a malicious person were supposed to infect like 200,000 laptops right across the globe, all of those resources put together would pretty much outweigh like a mainframe machine. So that is pretty much the concept around it, right? So they infect machines and pretty much have them on a collective network. And then now from there, they can send out requests and have those machines able to, with the combination of all of those resources, be able to mine Bitcoin. That is the whole concept around it. TubeIT, I don't know what that application is. I would have to vet it.
That one I think is a music one. TubeIT. Yeah, I think that one is for music.
Oh, I'm not aware of that application. I will have to look further into it.
Yes, it's one of those where you get it free. I know you're along the paid line, and that's fine. But it's one of those apps that you get the music for free.
Okay, okay. Well, I mean, like I said, nothing is actually free, so it's something
that we're finding out. That we're finding out.
Yeah. So I can look into it. I've never heard of it. What I use Deezer and the music. Well, I don't use the music anymore, but I use Deezer. But TubeIT, I can look into it. I'll let you guys know. So the person that asked that question, like, you can reach out to me after the presentation, and I can do some further research where that is concerned, and I can advise you. Apple Music is good as well. Yeah, I don't use it though, but it's good. All right. Were there any other questions, Dewey?
No, I didn't. I don't think I see any other. I think that was it.
Okay. Okay. All right.
One was just asking about we should be careful about how we accept cookies. These days, when you go on a number of websites, you're seeing the accept cookies thing. Is that something we should just say yes to generally, or we should still be aware?
Typically, I don't. So when I visit a site and I see that prompt, I just exit off if that option is available. Or what I do is I disable. I use Chrome a lot, so in my Chrome settings I have cookies disabled, and probably that's why when I go on site it will ask me for that. But typically it depends. A lot of malicious core facets are associated with cookies. So because I'm aware of that fact, when I go on sites, I don't accept those terms and policies. Some of them actually force you to accept it to access the site, so you have to be keen about that. When I see sites like those, I just come off of them and find like other alternative site to figure out what I want. But it's something to keep in mind. If you go on Google settings, you can probably like just Google it, how to disable cookies from when you visit site, because what cookies allow, it pretty much writes a file to your machine and it's used by sites to actually track various sites that you visit or so forth. When you use incognito in Google Chrome, it says it does actually use cookies, and it's pretty much feature in Google where it doesn't track what you use. Well, that's our them system. There's actually research out there to show that even if you use incognito, persons are still able to track the sites that you visit. So that is actually something that you can look into. But accepting cookies, sometimes it's legitimate and sometimes it can be. So it really depends on how you actually view it. But personally, I would say be very keen and cautious when you visit sites asking for cookies. If you can exit that without accepting it, then it would be in your best favor to do so. But yeah. All right, so the final common threat that we're gonna look at is computer virus. Now, pretty much a computer virus is a program that alters how a computer works. And in most cases, it has some form of negative repercussion. Now, viruses have evolved, so to speak. It's not your traditional virus that would cause your icons to change and have a million windows pop up on your machine, making it slow and laggy. Viruses have actually evolved. So what you find is now viruses are built in a way where they are stealthy. They're able to evade antivirus detection, and cyber criminals actually use these as a key areas to exploit a system and to actually foster other malware components to be infected on personal devices, servers, whatever. So that is pretty much the gist of virus. The purpose of it, of course, is to corrupt files, to use up files excessively, and like I said, to evade antivirus. Couple ways to mitigate those are to, of course, use antivirus applications. Even though you may have viruses that can evade antivirus, antivirus applications are being updated depending on what you have very frequently. So if a method of evading antivirus is known to the cybersecurity community, they would actually send those out to the various vendors. They would update their antivirus application, and now you would be protected from those. We have what is called a zero-day vulnerability, and what that pretty much means is that there is a vulnerability out there that the cyber community is unaware. So vulnerabilities like those, or weaknesses like those, malwares that are considered 0 days, you wouldn't be protected from those because they're not known to the cybersecurity. However, given the fact that we have AI capabilities now, antivirus applications are built in a way where they can see how softwares are behaving, and depending on that behavioral pattern, it can justify if a application or so forth is considered malware. So if a malware was just created and sent out there in the public domain and the community was unaware of it, if you have a decent enough antivirus on your computer and you happen to get infected by it, the antivirus would pretty much, if it's not in its database, its known signatures, it would pretty much watch how that malware application behaves. And depending on the behavior, it would flag it and consider it a malware. So those are pretty much mitigation steps as it relates to virus. And of course, be very keen and cautious when you're downloading from the internet, and don't open links within emails from unknown sources, right? Ready. So we're going to go in vulnerability management. Vulnerability management has to do with finding weaknesses pretty much in system. So vulnerability management is pretty much the practice of identifying, classifying, mitigating, remediating software vulnerabilities and computer systems. Now, what is known out there is vulnerability scanners. And what vulnerability scanner does is, it's actual application, software, so to speak. It would actually probe a system, scan a system, and if that system has any weaknesses in it, so for instance, it's missing patches within the security community, there was a known misconfiguration associated with that version of software that you're using, vulnerability scanners would be able to identify those things. So it's very conclusive. It's used a lot, especially in corporations. It's essential actually for usage in corporate system, because A lot of time is that you will have weaknesses that just off of the back of your head, you won't be able to identify. So vulnerability scanners actually fill that gap, whereas it allows for on-time scanning of systems to actually pretty much find weaknesses in your system. And what you would find is that you have a vulnerability team assigned to, depends on the growth or the aspect of the organization. You might have a vulnerability team put in place, and depending on the size of the organization as well. Most enterprise companies that you find that operate in different jurisdictions or across the globe, they'll have a dedicated vulnerability management team, which is responsible for setting up these vulnerability scanners to scan system, find the weaknesses in systems, and then now it would record those, document those, and send them out to the various personnel so they can fix those vulnerabilities. So vulnerability management is very essential. These icons that I have down here, these are just a few vendors that are considered global recognized vulnerability management vendors. That's Nessus or Tenable, Nexpose, and Tripwires. And you can do further research into your own time on vulnerability management and see how these companies relate to that. All right, so we're going to go into another session break, right? And for this session break, what I want you to discuss with your group members is, and I'm going to put this case before you. So you receive an email, right? And I'm just going to read it out for you. Dear email user, beginning next week, we will be deleting all inactive emails accounts in order to create space for more users. You are required to send the following information in order to continue using our email account. If we do not receive this information from you by the end of the week, your email account will be closed. So, yeah. Please contact the webmail team with any questions. Thank you for your immediate attention. What should you do if you get an email like this? So this is the user case I'm pushing. So Dwayne, you can facilitate this.
For sure, for sure. And maybe the response is before you are exposed us to all that you've exposed us to might have been totally different from what you're going to get now. But I think we're all the better for it. What I'm going to encourage participants to do is take a picture of what's on screen here, because once you go in the group, unfortunately, this won't be here. So if you can use a quick minute just to take a picture so that, you know, in your group, you will have it. There's a question here. Does this session go right up to the next? No, there will be a 1 hour break. So we go until 12, or we're scheduled to end at 12 for this session. Maybe go a little bit after. Then we take a 1 hour break. I think DJ Shanae will be playing some music during that period. And then we will be back at 1 for the next thing. Prizes, yeah, there are those as well. Again, DJ Shanae will take that one. The certificates, yes, we are confirmed the certificates. I'll post in the group here. I hesitated because we normally have a particular certificate that says endorsed by the Ministry of Education, and we were checking to see whether or not we can have that on there. We got yes, it can be, because of the time frame for the session. It's not a 1 hour session, so you definitely can. So yes, we will be doing some virtual certificates, not printed, virtual, but we can always talk about how to get printed versions. And that's why it's important in the group. I have put, and I'm gonna put it again, I've put a register there. Yes, we have your information in terms of email address and so on before, but the name might have been spelled incorrectly, or for some persons, you might have used a name that is not really the name that you want to appear on the certificate. So there you go. If you've completed it already, that's fine. Only once. Once is good enough. We've definitely logged that. But we want to make sure that we have the correct spelling for the name. Let me just check. We have 90 persons on this call. However, we've gotten 42 responses so far. So if you don't fill it out, then there's nothing else we can do in terms of making sure that your name is correctly spelled on a certificate. Okay, I've given you enough time to take a shot of what's there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to allow you guys to go back in the same room you were in before. Yeah, why not? And we are gone to the breakout rooms. I hope you were able to think a little bit about the scenario that was posed. I see 2 hands already, and I'm going to jump straight to them as we are right up on the midday mark. I'm going to go to Stephanie, and then we hear from Sasha. Stephanie, you can go ahead.
Okay, afternoon. So that was related to me. So we did not have a discussion per se because I was just wondering what was happening. Right. So first of all, if we registered with an account using our emails, our status would not be reflected on our end to say we're active or inactive. So it would be on their end to go through and filter out the active accounts versus the inactive accounts, and they will have all our information there listed, name, etc., because it's already in their system. So it's not up to us to resend them that information. So I would not reply.
You would not reply. All right, cool, no problem. I'll get some other responses and then turn over to Roel so he can grade whether or not your responses are within line. Let's hear from Sachel, and then I see Tariq and John. So Sachel, over to you.
Yes, hello everyone again. So my group members were, one of my group members were saying that it looks very, very convincing, and the only thing that stood out to her was that they were asking for email, her password. So that's something that we realized, that the phishing emails, even though Mr. Forbes said, usually has incorrect spelling, that's not always the case, and it's very, very convincing. But you should always check the email address, see if there's any links and urgent wording. So those are things that really stand out and inform you that that it's a phishing email. And we decided that we would report it and delete the email. So maybe Gmail can delete it so that other people don't fall victim.
Yes.
Okay, so that's basically our point.
A good analysis. Of course, I'm not the cybersecurity expert, but we'll hear from him in a minute. Tariq, let's hear your response.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So in our breakout group, pretty much what Sachel said, those are some of the things that stood out for us. The fact that it's asking you for your login information. And I think it's also asking for date of birth and all those other information that they should have already had. So for us, we would not have responded to the email any at all.
Sounds good, sounds good. Let's hear from Felicia.
Hi, just basically reiterating most of what person said. It's not a very convincing email to me, first and foremost. Those information that they're asking for would have been the initial information that you would have inputted in creating your email. So I think persons with, a strong knowledge or on the spot would actually pick up that asking for a password and additional email, which would have been something that would have been required prior to opening your account.
Agreed. It looks a little suspect for sure. Let's get DeAndre.
Yes, so good morning. I share the same sentiment as everybody else as we are in our groups, because like if you're already a part of that company, you're already a client, why would they want your information again? And if they're doing like an upgrade or whatever to get new servers, why wouldn't they like broadcast a message to everyone, like a general advertisement or so forth? So yeah, we would flag the email and report it basically, because it's
For
sus.
sure.
It's
For
sus.
sure. All right. Great. 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 Thank you for that. And then Crystal.
Hi, good afternoon. So I was thinking that if you're part of this company, right, and they sent you an email, first thing you could think of is contacting the company, not using this email, but like directly, like with by phone or using the website that they have to see this email is actually true. And with the same thing with DeAndre, if this is an official thing, like this is real, then it would be broadcast everywhere and not just in an email to you directly.
Deal. Deal. I like the critical thinking that's coming behind some of these answers. Great stuff. Cheryl, I see you now have your hand up. Cheryl, you're muted. You can unmute.
Pardon. Right. I was
Sorry.
just making the point to contact them directly. That's the one I wanted to add.
Oh, okay. I'm with
Right.
that.
Right. So in support of the others, but to add to contact them directly.
Directly, right, to see if
And
it is legit.
using another means.
Yes, yes. Awesome, awesome. Sounded as though we had some robust discussions. When we put you in the groups, guys, it's really for you to be able to interact and share experiences and voices in a much more controlled group. Right now, there are 83 persons on this call. If we're supposed to have that back and forth discussion, it's just going to get unwieldy. So we normally like to throw people in the group so that they can share different perspectives. And if when you're thrown in a group, because we have a session this afternoon and we have 2 more tomorrow, if when you're thrown in a group, nobody's speaking, that's an opportunity for you to practice your public speaking skills. So you could try by just saying hello and start with your own sentiments, and hopefully that will spawn some discussion and so on. But thank you so much. Good responses so far. I'm going to turn over to Ruel so that he can elaborate on some of the points that he's heard coming out of the discussion, and then also to give his wrap-up comments. Ruel, over to you.
Thank you, Dwayne. These are all very good responses, and like Dwayne said, you guys are actually thinking critical, and you should apply that in whatever you do. So, of course, you get an email from a source that you're not aware of. If depending on the nature of the email, if you know that that particular business does not carry out transaction in a way where if something were to happen, they would ask for this data, then that would pretty much raise a red flag. Most persons indicated that they would actually reach out to the vendor or source to find out if this was actually sent from them, which is a very good and key method of actually validating if something was sent from a legitimate source. So all of you guys' responses is very good, and yes, you guys are on the right track. So it was actually a phishing email, so to speak. And like I said, no company or legitimate vendor is going to ask for personal or sensitive information over email. There are other diverse or secure channels, whereas if they were supposed to actually use their system were supposed to go down like everything not white, and they needed to accumulate that data, they would actually follow a certain policy or guidelines to actually acquire those informations from their clients or customers in a more secure manner. So that you guys are definitely on the right track. I'm just going to respond to a question I saw in the chat window. Someone said certificate. I guess they were talking about when I said in terms of sites being legitimate, and if you look at that padlock, they're actually issued secure certificates. Just to confirm, so that was from Stephanie Murray. So Stephanie, that certificate, was that directed to me, or were you talking about something else?
I think that might have been a certificate on my side.
Doing
Okay.
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
No
Okay.
problem.
All right. No problem. All right, guys. So let's just continue with the presentation. I'm actually at the end right now. Just 3 other subject matters to cover, and we'll be on our way. So let me just share my screen. All right. So the next topic that we're gonna spend on or look at is incident response. And pretty much what incident response is, it's an organized approach to addressing the aftermaths of a security breach or cyber attack. In any event, these are actually considered security incidents. Now, every organization, well, not every, but in most cases, you would find a dedicated team, which is called the CIRT, or Cyber Incident Response Team, that is responsible for addressing a security incident when they occur. So there are pretty much 6 steps that is followed or that is conducted in addressing if a company were supposed to be hacked, as what we might know it as, or experience a data breach. I'm just gonna just run through the 6 steps for you. So the first one is preparation. Now, the preparation step would pretty much be that the CIR team would develop pretty much policies and procedures on how to actually work through a direct channel as it relates to a data breach. So if a data breach were supposed to occur, the policies would state that, all right, the incident response team would need to be contacted immediately, that they would, if they need to liaison with other personnel such as law enforcement, they would actually do that. So the preparation stage is pretty much just to get everything correlated together. So pretty much just work through that flow in case a data breach were supposed to occur. The second step is identification. And what identification does is that it pretty much gives the persons within the response team an indication to the identity of a source vector or a malicious source vector. Typically what incident response teams would rely on is, of course, anti-malware, antivirus applications, intrusion detection systems, and intrusion prevention system. So these are actually controls.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Can you guys hear me? Just got a message that I was muted. Okay. All right.
We can hear you, yes.
Okay. So I was saying that incident response teams actually use those methods to actually identify threat factors as they happen on the network. So your antivirus, your intrusion detection system, these are actually controls put in place to actually identify a malicious source actor if they happen to infiltrate your network. The other step is containment. So containment pretty much is the step used to contain that malicious source factor so it doesn't cause any more damage. So you pretty much want to stall it, you want to confine it, you want to kill whatever processes it's carrying out so it doesn't affect the system more. The incident response team is responsible for that. Also, the other step is eradication. You want to eradicate any means of what actually is perpetuating or what is causing that risk factor or threat factor to actually happen. So if you have like a malicious file or so forth, you want to ensure that that file is recorded and that it's deleted out of the system If there's any backdoor access that is happening, you want to ensure that those backdoor access are closed, that connection is severed, so the risk factor doesn't have any more means or ways to actually conflict or cause more damage within that network space. The other step is recovery stage. You want to, after all of the 4 steps are carried out, you want to ensure that systems, or the incident response team ensure that systems are brought back to a state where they can function and they can actually now carry out businesses on a regular basis before that actual incident had occurred. The final stage is lesson learned. This is a very critical stage. The incident response team would sit down with other stakeholders and meet and discuss ways of preventing future data breaches. What happened wrong in the other stages? Was the response time in a good time? Was the team contacted in a very good or dynamic time? Were there any faults? Were there any issues that occur? Lesson learned would pretty much facilitate all of those, and they would also do reporting on the data breach that occurred and keep those for record keeping. All right, so pretty much that is just a gist of incident response team. You have a dedicated team that is used to carry out investigation if a data breach were supposed to occur, and these are the 6 steps that we would actually follow. Now we're gonna go into security architecture. Now, security architecture is pretty much the design and placement of components of security controls within a given system. You may have heard me mention anti-malware and intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems. Those are pretty much correlate to what those security controls are. But within every given organization or any given business, their infrastructure, their network, you'll never find the same identical network between businesses or their security control. Their network design is unique to them, and depending on how that system is designed, you would need to put proper security controls in place to ensure that the system is carried out, or the business or transaction being done on that network is done in a secure manner, right? So just to look at a few security controls, you have legal and regulatory means of controls, and these are mostly on an administrative levels. You have your policies, your standards, your guidelines, and your procedures. Policies are basically high-level operations, are pretty much principles that people need to follow within a given organization. The standards pretty much talk to rules and controls that are enforced. They pretty much enforce the policy. Procedures are pretty much ways of how to get things done. And guidelines are, in a sense, more generic in that, say, for instance, guidelines speak to backup. It would now state that, say, for instance, all your servers or so forth needs to be backed up within a particular time. Guidelines would pretty much cover those. And legal and regulation actually talks to, they're depending on the state or geographical location, there are certain security regulations that must be adhered to. So for instance, in the EU, the European Union, they have what's called the GDPR, which is General Data Protection Act. And every company that pretty much accept user information, they must follow this regulation. If they're in breach of it, they'll be required to pay hefty fines, and more than likely they'll have their businesses closed. So these are like government institution regulations and policies put out that companies must adhere to ensure that clients or customer information is kept safe. Now again, you have risk management we discussed in earlier topics that covered how management or companies actually deal with risk, whether they, depending on the risk assessment, if they plan to mitigate it, transfer it to someone else, accept that risk, or just avoid it completely. Now, operational means is monitoring, and monitoring would mean like your IDS system, which is pretty much, so all your network traffic is being filtered through that device or that software, and it would give now a visual representation of what is being conducted. So persons like me that work in that security core concept, I would have access to monitoring tools, and I would therefore pretty much see what is happening on the network, and depending on what is happening, I can then verify if this action is suspicious, if it's spooky in any way, if it needs to be addressed, things of that nature. Then you have your physical control, which is essentially very important within any establishment. You have your CCTV cameras if needed, your security guards, your perimeter controls like your fences, walls, and so forth. All of those would fall under physical controls. And you have your technical controls as well, which in a sense would tie back to your operational means. So antivirus, firewalls, intrusion detection system, intrusion prevention systems, all of these are technical areas, are technical controls that would pretty much facilitate your security architecture design. And of course, we have what is called defense in depth. And what defense in depth pretty much mean is that you have a core multi-layer of security control. So if one control were to break, you would have now a secondary control that would aid as a deterrent or a means to help ward off malicious intention. So that is pretty much the capabilities or the definition of what defense in depth actually means. Now we're gonna go in careers in cyber security. Well, this one is very interesting. I normally encourage persons who are seeking to start a career in cyber security that they should find out or learn as much information as possible. We live in the information age, and a lot of information is out there. You can do like a quick Google search that will actually help you to get up to speed in what to expect and what to know if you're actually thinking about going into cybersecurity. Now, for entry-level recipients, what you'd find is that they would fall more in the group of analysis or investigators. And pretty much what analysis would do is their job function mostly incorporates like a compliance basis, so to speak. So ensure that computer systems are kept secure, that they're being updated, that they have antivirus application installed on their machine, that user accounts, whoever has access to this particular resource that they need that access, and so forth. There are actually entry-level certifications too that persons can peruse. CompTIA Security Plus is definitely a good one to start off people who have no knowledge or are novice as it relates to cybersecurity. You also have the IC Squared Cyber System Cybersecurity Certified Practitioner, which is a good entry-level certification as well. Also, you have tertiary institutions that offer security-related degree programs, in which I have. I attended the Northern Caribbean University, and I did a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science, and I emphasized in security. Now, as your career expands, you move up the ranks in terms of career as it relates to cybersecurity. Mid-level persons would actually fall into the group of auditors. And what auditors would, it's more of an administrative role in that if you are called into audit a system or you're a consultant, what you would pretty much do is look at the security controls that are being done or you would look at the policies and ensure that they actually align with the business course and principle. So IT auditors or cybersecurity auditors are very important. Almost all companies have to be audited. Like, that is just a rule of thumb. And they would call in auditors to come in. And auditors pretty much would help to find gaps or areas that are not being addressed properly. They will find weak links within the whole security architecture of a company, and they would make recommendations to help assist those. You actually have your pen testers and ethical hackers as well. Those are persons who are trained to actually break into system, but they do it in an ethical manner. You have certification that speak to those, so you have your certified ethical hacker, or you have your offensive security certified practitioner, which is offered by Offensive Security. They're actually the company that build the Kali Linux distro, hacking distro built on Linux, and they offer training for ethical hackers. It's a very interesting field. It's something I do have knowledge in, and I plan to expand on. So if that's an area that you find yourself wanting to do, then you can go ahead. Rule of thumb is, if you're planning, especially as it relates to pen testers, having coding background would definitely give you a plus, scripting and so forth. It's an area in cybersecurity that you definitely get your hands dirty with. Auditors, on the other hand, is more administrative, it's more managerial. So if you are not a technical person, you just want to administer stuff, you look at your policies, documentations, you can make recommendations. Those are areas within cybersecurity. And of course, you have the advanced level. This speaks to more like chief information security officers, and they would pretty much oversee a cybersecurity department. So all the other levels, like your analysts, your auditors, your ethical hackers, they would pretty much respond, or they would pretty much report up to that person. Cybersecurity manager kind of plays a key role in that as well. Your security engineers, what they would actually do is build systems, so to speak. So engineers would actually look at the dynamics of how advanced malware work, and they can help other developers or security like-minded persons to build systems that can counteract those advanced malware that is put out there. Your security architect person would pretty much build out systems. So they would actually build out, they would actually look at a network design, and from there they would actually liaison with other personnel to actually help them to collaborate an effort in putting security controls in various aspects of that network to ensure that the network is properly secured in the event a data breach was supposed to occur, or if there is any anomalies, or if a person was granted access to something that they should not have access to. The security architecture person would actually help to mirror or lay out the foundation in putting security controls at different points in that design to help visibility and to help to track things that would pretty much be considered malicious. Certifications as well, you have your CISSP and your CompTIA CASP. That is a certification I'm currently working on getting right now. Wish me best of luck. And you also have your CISM, which is Certified Information Security Manager. These are very high-level certification, very expensive. They cover a lot of information, trust me. It's not a walk in the park, but as long as you have the experience, you have the drive, you have the motivation, these are things that you will be able to accomplish. And pretty much that would bring me to the end of my presentation. I truly hope that you guys learned a lot, and that the information that I shared was very valuable, and that you use it in your personal life and all your endeavors that you pursue in life. Just keep in mind that security is everybody's responsibility, and that whatever you do it in a secure manner. I'm going to leave my email with you guys. I'm just gonna place it in the chat window. So if you want to reach out to me, some persons had indicated their interest of reaching out to me. So this is my email. Just send me a quick email whenever you have time, and I'll reach out to you guys and we can discuss further. So that's it for now, guys. Like I said, I truly hope that you guys have learned a lot from this presentation and that it will be. Thanks a lot for having me as well.
Great, thanks, Roel. If the comments in the group are anything to go by, we are certainly seeing some good stuff. I think, Shani, your screen has gotten the fever that my screen had earlier. It's flipped. Oh. It's representing some of those states that Biden have flipped. So why that? I'll just say again, Roel, thank you so very much. I'm seeing in the group, thank you, great presentation. I saw somebody was saying that they don't have much knowledge and expertise or even interest in the area. However, them just want to make sure nobody can take them for idiot.
Right.
Very much so.
So that's pretty good. There's a hand from Ramon. I'm going to turn over to that, and then Shanae, it's over to you. Afterwards. So Ramon, go right ahead.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I'd like to know, how can we get access to the recording?
Yes, the recording will be sent by email. We've been sending you a lot of emails reminding you of the sessions and so on. Forgive me, but I just wanted to make sure that persons are actually here for the informative sessions that we have planned. All the links will be sent to your email so that you will have it, whether or not you indicated an interest in the session. So
okay, and it can be downloaded at any time.
And it can be downloaded at any time. Yes, downloaded, watched anytime you choose. And then we'll also try to see if we can get different pieces like the presentation or the materials that Roel might have. He might have to clean a few things up and then send that to us so that we can send it to you. But we'll try to have as much information as possible, and we'll tell you how to access it.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, great.
Awesome. All right, thanks, Dwayne and Roel. Thank you so much again. But I'm going to test their knowledge just another 5 minutes before we set you off on your break so that you come back at 1 for your next session. I have just a couple of questions for you. Let me see if you've been paying attention.